I think we should come on just go fine. Oh, we did.
We just did. We're live.
We did.
Hi, everybody. Oh my God, we're here. Now we came
Wow.
in, our tails on fire, but we are here. It has been an interesting week. Interesting week. So,
A little bit.
hi everyone. Welcome to today's episode of the Memories Cal Chit Chat, and we are going to be talking today about section 2, but I'm going to let Deb take it away.
Oh, well, I think we should introduce ourselves like nobody is clued into who we are, but I'm Debbie of Madam Stitch, and you are?
I'm Biz of Busy Crochet.
Of course you are, because that's what it should be. And
Well,
you
and that's
were
what
the
my
one
name says on the bottom of the
that,
screen. So.
and mine does too. So if they,
Yeah.
whatever. We are in a feisty mood today, which is probably perfect for section 2, because it is full of gorgeous texture and color.
Yeah.
And we are here to give you all the tips and tricks to help you work through section 2. Now we're going to start with this disclaimer. It's not a disclaimer, but a reminder that as you did for the mitered square strip, you're going to do the same thing with the Cordelia square strip. You're going to sew them together. Biz has instructions on how to put an edge row on the top and the bottom. And before you ever start to add section 2, you're going to sew the Cordelia strips onto your section 1 using a special technique that she shows you in the post. Now, we've heard already from a couple of very observant people that our blanket is based on 135 stitches wide. And the Cordelia strip, when you sew it together from corner to corner, ends up with more than 135 stitches across. But guess what? In all of Biz's brilliance, she adapted the edging rows to make it work. So trust the process.
Yes.
We've got you covered in this. We haven't made a mistake. Well, I will say that I probably did too many stitches by not thinking about it, but Biz covered my butt.
It's adaptable.
And we're good. And it works. So trust the process. The instructions are there. All right.
Yeah.
So let's get on to this beautiful section 2, which includes 2 fabulous stitch patterns that I want you to talk about. Describe the 2 stitch patterns that you have in this particular section.
Well, the first one that you're going to encounter is going to be the interlocked diamond, and it's probably the most intimidating of all of the stitches that are in this blanket, just because mostly because the written section is like little paragraphs. However, there is
you can see all my notes on mine right there.
Yeah, they're big. They're big. There's a lot of words, and unfortunately, there's no way to get away from that just because of the nature of the pattern stitch or stitch pattern. So, yes, there's a lot of words, and it can get confusing. But I made a video. And it's one of those stitches that once you get into the rhythm of doing it, it's very intuitive. And the one thing that I will say as far as keeping track of which side of the work you're because you're going to be putting a loop on a stitch marker, working another color, and then coming back and putting that color back on there. And then when you flip it and go the opposite direction, you have to pay attention to which side, because otherwise your loop gets stuck on the wrong side, and there's no way other than ripping it all the way back. Believe me, I've had to do it. Ripping it all the way back, moving it to the right side, and doing it all again. So to save yourself a headache, there are notes in the written pattern saying, make sure that, your loop is on such and such side of your work. Now, the only place that's going to really be a difference between the video and the written pattern is because this blanket worked a little bit differently as far as stitch count is concerned. So it's not exactly the same as far as so pay attention to what's written down as to which side your loop needs to be on. but the nature of the stitch stays the same. So watch the video. And one of the ladies in the group, I think it was Brenda. She had said that she tried to watch it on silent and it just didn't click for her. So don't watch it on silent if you can help it. And I do a bit of chitter chatter at the beginning of the video just because I explained to you what the like chain count is and how you can use it for other projects and stuff. So just like fast forward to the good stuff. But definitely give it a watch and give yourself a lot of grace. This is one of those patterns where it's a back and forth. You're going to be bouncing back and forth to the front side and the back side of the work throughout.
I'm going to interject and say, take it slowly until
Mhm,
the pattern, there's a pattern to it, a rhythm to it, and
mhm,
find that rhythm. Once you do, you
mhm.
can remember back to that episode where we talked about how you like to have a rhythm.
I
I
do.
actually used it for this one.
Oh, that's awesome.
I did. In the front, chain 3, in the front, chain in the I
And
did,
then bounce to the next one. Do the
yeah,
do the
I
do,
did.
and then chain 3, bounce to the back.
I
And
created a rhythm that helped
yes.
me remember the pattern
Mhm.
that goes through that one row.
Yeah.
So I highly recommend that.
And it's
It gives a
super
flip.
easy to screw it up. I mean, it is. It just because you get like, "Oh, I've got a chain 3 and go, and then I got a chain 3," except that no, you've gotta do your stitch, you gotta bounce over to the other one that's on the same side, do that stitch, and then chain 3 and bounce to the front side.
Yeah, I can't tell you how many times I added chain 3. It was like, "And do that stitch and chain 3, and do that stitch and chain 3," and then
We
I
just
go
get
back,
ourselves
like,
in this.
look. So that's another tip that I would say in this, we're getting ahead of ourselves, but that's another tip from a maker standpoint.
Mhm.
Look at the row a lot. Don't go
Yeah.
all the way across and then look and go, "Oh, there's a mistake at the
Oh,
beginning."
crud.
Right? Look
Watch what
at
you're
it
doing.
often so that
Yeah.
you catch the mistakes as you go, because it's awfully easy to add those chain threes, like I said.
Yes. And I'm just going to throw this comment up there. Just finished the first 3 rows of the diamond stitch. Only frogged 4 times. However, love it. Thank you. You're welcome. Thank you for commenting. And
Yay.
Neve said that she finds a highlighter on the instructions helpful. And reading the instructions slowly, just step by step, that makes such a difference rather than thinking, I know what's going to happen. And as it turns out, I don't. So she
Yep,
was
I
kind of just
agree with that.
reiterating what you were saying is
Yep, I
just
agree
take
with
it
that
slow.
wholeheartedly.
It's okay, it's in the minute, it's in the blanket, it's the spot where you're gonna have to slow down and it's not gonna be fast. But it's a really little section.
Yep.
You're not doing a ton of it. Now, when I discovered this stitch, I started fooling around with it, I wanna say January of last year, and I fell in love with it because it was so much fun. It worked up so fast, and I made everything in this stitch. I mean, like, I have made everything in this stitch. And I was completely obsessed for about 6 months that, like, I didn't wanna work on anything else. So, it's one of you're just getting the tiniest little bite of it in this blanket,
Mhm.
but it kind of helps you to decide, "Do I like interlocked work or don't I?" You know, because it's a
No,
thing.
it's a great first. I've never done this technique, so that was a
Mhm.
great first dab the toe in the pond kind of thing. Um, and I think the tips and tricks that you've given, that we've discussed, are really helpful. Take it slowly. It will be worth it. Totally
Yes.
worth it.
Yes. And just remember, you're doing almost 90% chaining in this section, so don't be tight because it will pull in. I found that I wasn't paying attention to what I was doing just because I'm so used to the stitch that I just did my thing. And I found that my blanket went,
Oh,
well, where's
dear.
my it went "Tweet." So that was one of my challenges that I had to block out of my blanket. So don't do what I did. Make sure that your chaining is fairly not loose, loosey goosey, but not tight.
Well, chains tend to be tighter than a stitch anyway.
Hmm.
It's just
And
by the
they'll
very
pull.
nature of their construction, right?
Yeah.
So, you have to, in especially in something like this, you have to pull them a little bit looser
Yeah.
in between stitches to
Hmm.
match what's
Right.
around it.
Right, exactly. And then the only other thing that you're going to be making is double crochets and I believe a half double crochet and some singles. It's really simple. I mean, it's not hard stitches. You're not doing a lot of fancy things. It just looks fancier than it is. And it's one of those, it's super simple to make and it makes me look like a genius. So let's go.
Well, that's what we're after.
That is what we are after. Because people are going to look at that and go, oh my God, how did you do that? And you're going
No,
to be like,
that's
it's a
amazing.
secret.
Oh my gosh, I can't share any of that, but don't you love it?
I'm magical. It's beautiful, isn't it? So going on to the second part of the pattern, it is chunky, fat clusters in rows of double crochet that hide all of your chains to the back
Mhm.
side of your work. And I like to make things like baubles and stuff stand out and be their own element and make them really prominent. I like lace things that have baubles and popcorns and things like that in it. It's pretty. It adds this little tiny bit of texture. But if I'm going to use a bauble or a cluster, I want that sucker to be the star.
In your face.
Exactly. I want to know that there's a bump there.
Well,
So, yeah.
I have to say, I have had so much fun learning this technique. I'm the designer who just blends the bobble right into the fabric and just keeps going, right? It's
Yeah.
just in the row and there the stitches around it, whatever. But you have created a technique where you set up a foundation row,
Mhm,
and then the baubles are worked in a different color, and
mhm.
then you work everything around it to make them just pop
Yeah.
through.
Yeah.
And it's a really simple, ingenious way to do baubles in a different color. That doesn't mean you're changing colors every 2 stitches.
Right. Right. And I hate changing colors. I hate having ends. I hate having to carry yarn because I feel like it sticks through the stitches. I just, there's just so many I have so many hangups. So I find ways to make it work for me so that I don't have to deal with my hangups.
I love it. Yeah, so I think they're going to appreciate if they've never done this particular technique
Mhm.
of working around the baubles, I think they're gonna really enjoy it because I
I
found it to
hope
be a lot of
so.
fun.
Yeah. And that particular I've used that in a lot of Christmas blankets. Like you want to put Christmas lights in there, this technique is there. You want to put little sheep on a hillside, this technique is there. Like I use it a lot. It's just a fun way of incorporating some chunk to your design
Mhm.
and everybody loves it. It's because it's fun to touch.
Yeah, it is, and it's really fun to look at. Um, well, we've interspersed tips and tricks throughout the talk. Is there
Mhm.
anything else that you would like to say about section 2 or working through this? But now we're getting farther into the blanket and it's starting to grow. Are there any
Yeah.
tips or tricks about in general for the blanket or for section 2?
I can't really think of anything that is, glaring in my brain that is weird about this section other than that first interlock diamond is a little bit of a challenge, but once you're past that, you're past it. And everything else beyond this is going to be, cakewalk compared to that. So, no, not really. Just, keep your chains loose and pay attention to where you're at on your rows on the interlock diamond and as well as on the baubles and stuff or the clusters because they're supposed to be offset so one
Mhm.
row starts here and then the baubles fall in between in the second row and then they go back to the original, so your counts are going to be different on each row. It's a great place for you to throw in some of those smaller colors if you have enough to highlight them.
Mhm.
You can make them. I love watching what everybody's doing. I am so in love with everybody's blankets.
Yeah.
There is not a single one of them that I've seen that I've gone, oh, not a single one.
No, no, they're really great.
Mhm.
One other tip that I would say for this section, which may apply to other sections, but really pay attention to right side and wrong side in the
Oh,
instructions.
yeah,
You aren't turning after every row. You
no.
might be for a little bit, but then
Mhm,
sometimes you might finish a row and then go back and start at the same side that you just
mhm.
did. So
That's a
really
smart.
pay attention to whether it says right side or wrong side.
Yes. And every row is marked.
Mm-hmm. Yes, it
Every
is.
single one of them.
Every one.
Because of that. But
Yeah.
like in the interlocked section, I don't know if everybody understands what interlocked is. You work one row of color. It's a lot like mosaic. You work one row of color and then you put that on a stitch holder, and then you go back and you work that second row of color over the top, but you're going back and forth so that you're weaving your colors together so that it makes a reversible fabric.
Yeah.
There's no ends, that you have to tuck in. It's not like mosaic where one side is there's a picture and the other side is kind of that funky background.
Right.
It's completely reversible on both sides.
Well, now speaking of ends, I will encourage everyone to weave in ends as you go, but weave them in loosely in case you have to block, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because this blanket, not just the squares, but the sections as well, maybe not this section, but all of these bits of the blanket have enough color changes, enough changing from one round or row to the next, that you're going to have a lot of ends to weave in. I wove in all the ends in my squares because I had to, but
Mm-hmm.
I waited until the very end before I think I might have even done the border before I wove in my ends. And it took me
Oh,
a long time.
God bless you.
I know, but sometimes I just want to move on to the next section.
Right. I'm the
That's starting.
same.
But if you can wait and be patient,
Mm-hmm.
try to get those ends woven in as you go.
Well, and here's the thing. There's a lot of people banging these sections out like boom, boom, boom.
I
You've got
know.
lots of time between
Wow.
this section and the next section to get all that stuff woven in. Like there's
Exactly.
time in between.
I know. So take advantage of the time and make sure that you get those ends woven in.
Yes.
You will thank us
Oh yeah.
when
Oh
we're
yeah.
done.
Oh gosh, because for me the worst part is waiting until the end. And now when I'm in the middle of designing something, a lot of times my brain is like, I've got to do the next thing. I've got to do the next
Mhm.
thing. So
Yeah.
I'll leave my ends and I turn it over. It's like, oh my God. And there are blankets that I have probably designed 6 or 7 years ago. I still haven't woven the ends in because
Well,
that's a lot of work.
yeah, and if it's a sample rather than one that you're going to be gifting to someone or keeping as home decor, you just get to a point where, well, that wasn't worth it, so I'm just leaving them. And then you try to take a photo later. I've had photographers tuck ends in as I'm trying to
Oh
model.
heck yeah.
Yeah, but
Yep.
don't do that here because you want a nice, beautiful blanket when you're finished, and you don't want to
Yes.
rip your hair out when you
Well,
get to the border.
and I always say when I'm doing a project, I want to be done when I'm done. When I put that last little stitch in there, I want to be done.
Well, I think that's why I have such a hard time with blocking, but sometimes there's just no way to avoid it.
Yeah.
So I've embraced it, but
Yeah.
yeah, when it's done, it's done.
I was a very reluctant blocker. Like I didn't do it for a long, long time. And then when I
Yeah,
started working with finer thread and fingering yarn and stuff and making shawls, you can't not do it. So
right. You have to open up those stitches. Yep. Oh, Neve says, I sit down in my rocking chair with my fave music. Yes, and weave the ends in. I do it with my favorite TV show. It can be very meditative, especially when you see how much better it's looking on the back. Nicely done, Neve. Good way to
yes,
put it. Thank you
like
very much for that.
springtime. That is. You always feel better when it's done.
Oh, well, yeah, that's the same
The
way
work
I feel
always
about
sucks, but
yard work and house cleaning.
yeah.
So, ah,
Oh my gosh, yard work. My husband just did 21 bags of leaves because he hasn't raked the leaves in the last 3 years. And he's got 15 more piles to go.
oh, oh, don't get me started. Yep.
So,
Except we have to do ours every year because they come around and pick them up with a truck.
oh, uh-huh.
They vacuum them up. But anyway, since this is your broadcast, you want to send us off into the universe?
Yes, I will. So, everybody, have a wonderful weekend. Make sure that you join us tomorrow for our podcast. We are starting a whole new month series because it's a new month. It's March, and we are going to be talking about crocheting for spring. So, we're going to be focusing on flowers tomorrow. And there's a
So
lot of great things that we want to share with you. So, 1 o'clock. Um, Central Time, 2 o'clock Eastern Time. And we will see you later. If you have any questions, absolutely reach out to us. You know that we're going to be there. All right. We'll see you in the groups.
All right. Bye, everybody.
Bye.